Hi, my name is Cheryl Camarillo, and I just wanted to say I am so sorry that you are having to struggle with this issue at this point in your life. Betrayal trauma is extremely upsetting, disruptive. It's a crisis. And I wanted to be able to come in here and answer questions because the number one question that I get from my clients when they come to me for counseling is, what do I do? So I decided maybe I needed to put together some type of coaching program in order to start explaining these things and offer support. So I'm going to start this off by just sharing, why do I even work in this area? I have my own story of betrayal trauma. I can remember in 2018 me making the decision that if my husband was going to continue to watch pornography without actually monitoring whether my daughter was in the area or not, I needed to keep her safe ultimately. So I asked him for a separation because he seemed to have a lot of other difficulties happening at the same time. So it was never my intention that when we separated that we weren't going to come back together. It was it was 12 years of being together, and I didn't see that we needed to end the relationship. I really wanted um, to see us get through this storm and come out on the other side in a positive way. But first and foremost, I had to keep my child safe. I can remember the look on his face when I let him know that I was not happy with the way things were going. And he agreed that he would go and find someplace else to be. So he went off and stayed in a microtel. And I thought at some point we would be able to have a discussion, that he would be able to make a commitment that he wouldn't be using pornography, and that we would come back together and grow as a couple. I saw this as kind of like a a point in our relationship where if we get through this, it was going to make our relationship even better because we will have learned to work together. So, um, after about 8 months, he still seemed really angry, and there wasn't any movement in the direction of getting help. So I decided I was going to do some research into that. So I started looking online, and I found Dr. Patrick Carnes, who had written a lot of books. I was familiar with him because I had worked in the sex offender field back in the late 90s. So when I found that, I went online just to see what was going on in his world, like whether he was offering conferences or if he had any new books. So when I went online, I noticed that he was having a resiliency um, conference. And so people were going up to the Dallas area to meet with him. And when I got there, I was amazed because it was filled with people that have been working in this field for so long and sharing their stories, explaining how they came into this field because of their own issues related to sex addiction, whether it was themselves or their partners. It was amazing to me. And I just decided this might be the answer. So I attended the training for 3 weeks. It was called Recovery Zone and Resiliency. So I came home and I decided I needed to think this over further. Like maybe I actually needed to go to training because this issue wasn't just isolated to me. I had worked with other clients, and I'll have those stories at later points throughout my um, my work with people. So I researched, how do you become a certified sex addiction therapist? And when I went online, what I found was that it was 4 long courses, 4 to 5 days at a time, and you had to fly in somewhere. So in 2019, I packed up my bags and I went off to Searcy, Arkansas, because they held their trainings throughout the country. And when I showed up there, I was still anxious because this was a lot of money. It was probably going to cost about $2,500 to attend the training, the flights, the meals, the hotel. It was a lot, but I also thought my marriage was worth it. So I attended the training, and I can remember the first day. Um, the speaker was Dr. Ken Adams, and he was discussing some of the underlying issues that contribute to a person having a sex addiction or a porn addiction. And I listened to him, and I was kind of in a daze. I think I was still suffering from my own reactions to the fact that this marriage was in so much chaos. And while he was talking, he talked about mother enmeshed men, and that got my ears perked up, and I just started wondering what that was. So after the class, there was a break, and he had his books out, and I went over and started flipping through them, and I read one of the first case examples, and I read it, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is this is one of those things that's contributing to what's going on with my husband. And I knew that if I understood one piece of what was contributing to it, because there was multiple, it wasn't just this one issue. If I could start to understand what that was about, that maybe there's a potential for my husband to get better. I mean, there's a room full of people that are studying this, and I was in a conference, a few months back, and there was just a ton of people with 10, 15, 20 years of experience and relationship with Institute for Trauma, addiction practitioners. So I um I went up to Dr. Adams, and I told him how valuable it was for me to see that there was the names for some things that I was experiencing and my husband was experiencing. And he talked about how he's done so much research in this field, um and I just decided at that point, I made the commitment that I was going to do whatever it took to try to fix this problem. Um, because it's not just him, it was also me. Clearly, I was impacted, and anybody else that was connected to my husband and me. So, I continued on with the training, still overwhelmed, but trying to learn as much as I could, meeting all kinds of um speakers that would come in, like the best in the field, and I just felt a sense of renewal of hope. And that's why I do this. Things are never easy when it comes to crisis in a relationship. And I think reaching out and finding those people that can support you, finding the information that'll lift you up, that'll help you see above everything that you're currently struggling with, like lifts you up, and you can take a look around and say, okay, I think I'm getting a plan of action here, just like I did. It was like, you know what? I know we need to go to counseling. I know I need to share with him some of my information, and I was hooked. I was I was going to become a sex addiction therapist, and I came home super excited, texted my husband because we were still just in the couple of words texting back and forth. I could tell that he's still you know wanted to be connected and in a relationship. He just was still very angry about having to leave the home. And gosh, calls and texts, and there was no response. I had gone off in January, like 22nd, was gone for about 6 days, 5 days, came back, started my texting, started my calling, nothing. Started driving past my husband's room every once in a while, maybe every couple of days, just to see if he was maybe out of town and he was working and he came back. So I I just thought maybe I'll catch him and I can go in and talk with him and just lay out my plan and hope that he was interested in that same plan. But still nothing. So after 2 weeks, my hope was starting to go, it was starting to crash, and I was like, okay, if I guess it's too little too late. I should have tried harder earlier, because of course that's what we do. We blame ourselves, right? And sometime in the third week of February, I got a call. I'd had a sinus infection. I was tired, exhausted. I was trying to sit in the line at Walgreens trying to get some medicine for a sinus infection, and had my daughter in the seat next to me, and my mother-in-law called, and I'm like, why is she calling me? And she greeted me and she seemed like she was okay, and then she said, I need the divorce decree that you and Danny had. And I said, what are you talking about? Because we weren't divorced. And I actually said, we're not divorced. I love my husband and we're gonna work on this. And she took a pause, she took a deep breath, and then she said, um, Cheryl, Danny died. And it was right there that I had so much pain, and all I wanted to do was just disappear. I even tried to go to work, when you have traumas and you tell yourself, pick yourself up, just do your regular things. You need you need some structure. If you go to work, you'll feel better. I don't know why we lie to ourselves like that. Um, so I did go to work, and then after about 3 hours, I told one of my coworkers. It was a new job, so I didn't really want to miss any time. And they went ahead and said, Cheryl, you just need to go take care of yourself. So I did. I left and was out for a few days um, without any kind of closure, because when he had passed away in January 18th, and this was the third week of February, when he'd passed away, she'd made arrangements to have him cremated, and she had a memorial, and just no closure. You know what my closure was? It was posting on Facebook about what he added to my life. He might have had some things that were taken away from my life, but there were certainly other things that um I found valuable and worth keeping. And when I had a better understanding of what his problems were, I also had a partial understanding of why I was involved with a person that had these kind of addiction issues. Um, it became it became even more clear that I had a mission to help people find this information, that relationships don't fall apart completely if they don't have to. Now, some relationships they're not gonna reconcile, but the ones that do have the thought that they want to stay together, that they have a family together, that they were best friends, that maybe there was all kinds of things going on at the time, and this chaotic behavior was connected to something else, other addictions involved as well. Um, I was gonna do something. And I also knew that when I had that question, what do I do? I wish I'd had that question way earlier, that I had researched and found information months before, because who knows? Maybe my husband would have still been alive and happier, and maybe have beaten his demons, or maybe we would have still been together in a relationship and worked things out. So this was way more than I realized I was going to share, but I just wanted people to understand, like, why do I even care? I spent a lot of time working with sex addiction and porn addiction. I had men coming in, I've had some women coming in, and we do the work, and it is work. There's it's just not, oh, go to a meeting, sing Kumbaya and go home. If you want to heal from an addiction, and especially this addiction, you have to be willing to look at every little piece that contributes to that. And at the center of so much of addiction is ultimately shame and guilt. And we talk about the shame and guilt spiral, and how hard it is and what a block it is on communication. If you, as a partner, are trying to talk to um, your your partner and they're not responding, or they seem to shut down, have that like frozen facial expression, and you feel yourself getting more and more pissed off, like, how disrespectful, why doesn't he listen to me? That's not what's really going on for a lot of them. A lot of times it's more of, how could I have done this? Why can't I control my behaviors? They're going into this shame and guilt, and they're also kind of using your anger to justify their behavior sometimes. And that's the beginning of treatment. You start doing doing searches. So the first call when a couple is looking for something, it's usually the partner that's done all the research, call the insurance companies, done the online searches, looked for podcasts, webinars, support groups, you name it. Um, the best part of working with women in betrayal trauma groups, helping women heal, is that they become the aficionados. Like, I hardly have to do that much work as far as trying to help explain what they're dealing with, and how um how they need to get through this. My role is usually just to offer support and educate, and I'm pretty happy with that. So they call in, they'll say, I need to speak to you about something that's pretty delicate. Do you? And I'll say, do I work with sex addiction? And they'll say yes. And that's the beginning of hopefully rapport building with the partner. They'll ask me questions, check to see, what my credentials are, what's my experience level, and then they ask, can I speak with their husband or their boyfriend, and set up an appointment. Sometimes the boyfriend or the husband comes in by themselves, or girlfriend, and sometimes the couple come in together because they're wanting to start on an even field, with both parties knowing the direction forward. So so they come in, and I meet them either direction, and I start gathering some history, and I start listening for where some of the problem sticking points are, and what kinds of trauma might have been involved in this, whether it's the trauma of the recent discovery of addiction or whether it has to do with, you know, family dynamics as a child. So I'm sitting there, I'm listening, I'm asking questions. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your relationship. Do you have kids? All of that. And it's not really meant to try to start immediate healing, but I really want to start building trust because at the center of these problems is that there's no trust. It's been broken. And both parties can't seem to see the way forward. But if I stand in the center and I am open and genuine and I reflect back and I try to give the information that I know I've seen and heard before, it gives a sense of hope, like I said before. And it's the beginnings for couples to go home and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And when a plan is in place, it really does serve to de-escalate the situation significantly. And um, and then we start treatment. Well, after a while of me working with the partners, the husbands or the boyfriends, girlfriends of sex addict or porn addict or a person that's got infidelity, after working with individuals for a while, then I try to have the partner come in. And when they come in, sometimes they come in by themselves just to get kind of a sense of like, what direction is this treatment going in? And they have questions, and I want to establish trust with the partner too. um, when your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend goes in to talk with somebody and you don't know what they're talking about, it's like another secret all over again. And I try to be transparent. I try to be open. I don't violate though the confidentiality between myself and the partner that has the issue, because that trust level affects the connection that we have in trying to heal. So, um, but a lot of times the women will actually sit on the couch in front of me and they will say, he seems to be getting better, doing better. He's not as angry, because that seems to be one of those common traits. When you're busted, cornered, whatever, you get angry. That's that fight or flight response. Like, I gotta save myself. I can't have the truth come out. So anyway, the fight or flight response comes in to play. And then when they come in and they start telling me the details of what's happened, there's this like de-escalation, like, I don't have to keep a secret anymore. I don't have to plan all these different ways and routes and opportunities and things that I need to do in order to continue to act out. And the relief that comes from that is immediately experienced. And the wife, the girlfriend, the boyfriend who's watched all of this and their partner going to treatment starts to get resentful. Like, okay, now they feel better. Guess what? I feel like crap. And if I feel like crap, what does that mean? It means that he's done the wrong, and now on top of that, he's getting rewarded with some peace of mind. And I experienced the most hurtful, painful, emotionally distressing, chaotic crisis of my life, maybe. And I'm still in crisis. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. I'm having nightmares. I have questions. I don't want to go to work anymore. Maybe I'm, explosive, angry. I don't want to, do anything with my kids, or I don't want to see him at all. Um, you name it. There's so many things that potentially can start going in the wrong direction. And when they started saying, why can he get relief and there's nothing for me? And I would point out some things out there in the community and online, and some local meetings, Celebrate Recovery, S&On for partners of sex addicts. Um, I just, I even suggest possibly going to couples counseling once he's more stable with his addiction issues. So I try to point the direction forward, but I just had this uneasy feeling that if I have the knowledge and I have the information, And I can be the person in between for some of my couples, not all of them, when I'm able to talk with both of them in a couples setting, or I talk with her and try to do the education on how to do self-care and how to break away from the constant thinking process around their partner's addiction or infidelities. You know, it it seems to start helping, and I just became dedicated to that. So I started, in addition to seeing my couples or my individuals for their sessions, I started offering couple sessions, and sometimes I would offer to see the partner. Ideally, it's always better um, if you see the partner with one therapist and the person with the infidelity or a problematic sexual behavior sees another therapist, and a third therapist comes into play working to address the couple issues. That's the ideal. Now, sometimes, you know, there's a different story. And when there's a different story, sometimes you have to write a different plan. And so, like I said, the ones that I work with, a lot of times I will do the couple work too, and I'll do the assessments. I'll make the, plans of actions for the people with the problematic behavior, and we move forward from there. And then I just started like realizing these people needed support. They were relying on each other, and they were both hurt, in crisis, and they couldn't trust each other that much. So I started a group for men, and the group for men offered an opportunity for them to not feel guilty and, ashamed and embarrassed. They had an opportunity to be open and to do problem solving, like, how do I change this behavior? And that's what I see in my groups. And they also work on recovery task, finding out all those components that need to be in place to keep them, um, stable. And then I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna start a women's group. So I started a women's group, a support group. So I would, if I was seeing the women or I was seeing their husbands, they would come into the women's group, and we would do recovery work for the women, working through and stabilizing them, helping them understand what is betrayal trauma, that first shock of your system, like, oh my gosh, um, why am I having to deal with this? And the 100 questions that go along with that. And then I just decided recently, this, I need to do more. You know, I need to offer more. I need to do more education, more than the support. And I need to be able to touch more people and give them guidance. The first stop when this happens, the first stop is figuring out what's the answer to what do I do? What do I do? So I decided to do coaching in this area. And so from the beginning of first finding out to your partner and yourself going through this stabilization, attending individual counseling sessions and couple sessions, as things get de-escalated and people start understanding how to reunify. Um, a lot of times there's a disclosure session where, every detail of what's happened or how this fell apart is discussed. And then the next part after disclosure is when both parties seem to feel like they're emotionally ready, and they feel strong in their recovery, like they're not getting triggered all the time, and they're just ready to start working on the basics of the marriage. There's a third piece. So there's crisis, and then there's stabilization, and then there's reconnection. And reconnection part is the part where the couple comes back together and they start learning how to be vulnerable with each other again and how to reconnect. You know, everybody's guard went up when this secret came out. And there's levels of anger from both sides. There's levels of depression, anxiety from both sides, and all of those constant thinking patterns and the triggers that were occurring, those when those calm down, now it's time for you to allow yourself to heal. So, yeah, that's why I started this, and that's why I'm having this um series of webinars. I plan to be here every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I will most likely post these. But if you're interested in attending this bigger program that I'm building, if you want the 8 week, tell me what to do, Cheryl, um, reach out to me, connect with me, look at my information down in the down below and look for links that will send you to an area where you can register to get more information, and I can explain what's going on. I really want to know that the best part of this job is seeing marriages. They may be struggling after a year, but their decision to stay together and their opportunities to have more happy moments to replace some of these bad moments is steadily increasing. I can see it. And I have hope for any of the couples where both partners want that. It can't just be one partner saying, I need to fix this. And then the other partner totally saying, no, I don't want to. Now you can have a determined partner that says, we are doing this and, leads the charge. And that requires that the other person get on board with the plan. But they can't just steadily just give lip service and, attend sessions and not get the recovery plan that they need in place. So, yeah, I am an early recovery, relationship recovery coach, and I also do some individual work in that area. If you're in Texas, I can see you for individual therapy. I can see you for couple therapy, and you know, I just I just find it very satisfying to see healing. So I probably said that a couple of times. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can actually reach me at cheryl.camarillo@gmail.com. Um, the safer option with, no clinical information on either of those is to also go on my website and send me a contact note saying I want to know more information, or could you put me on a mailing list to get notified of the webinars or anything else that I will be offering. Send me that contact. Um, let's see. I think that's it. Um, anyway, we'll probably be on here later this evening. I try to come on after 10 o'clock most nights just to kind of chat and, share golden nuggets of wisdom. So, it's always good to have somebody that's a little bit further ahead, give you a lift up with knowledge. And that's what I hope to do with the Zooms at night. Actually, the YouTube lives at night, and maybe someday also some of the other platforms. But right now, YouTube is where it's at, Zoom sessions and webinars. So thank you. Hope to hear from you.